the regular press briefing after each Federal Executive Council meeting. And we want to thank you for the work you are doing to keep Nigeria going and to also report the programs and activities of government. Consistent with the policy of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it is always our desire to give you first-hand information as honestly, as transparently, and as accurately as possible for the benefit of all Nigerians. And we also implore you to, at all times, also report objectively and patriotically for the good of our country. FEC proper, there was a briefing by the SGF on the successful conduct of the gubernatorial election in Edo State. Council has noted the peaceful conduct of that election, and Council, headed by Mr. President, is also thanking all Nigerians, particularly the citizens of Edo State, for their orderly conduct largely, and all the stakeholders that have participated, both the preparation and also who took part in that electoral process. It is indeed a victory for all Nigerians, and Council also has congratulated the winner of that election. Second, there was a minute silence observed in honor of one of the former member of the Federal Executive Council, Mrs. Salome Naomi Jankada, who died on the 27th of August. Recall that Mrs. Salami was a member of the Federal Executive Council as Minister of Women Affairs during the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo. Now, after that, of course, the proper meeting commenced. And the first agenda on that is the situation in Borno State. Recall that the president cut back his trip from overseas to come back to address this matter of urgent national importance. But beyond that, he also undertook a trip to Borno State in addition to the series of high-level government representation that has gone to that city. Members of FEC stood all through with people of Borno State, and we do hope that even as these disasters are bound to happen from time to time, care has been taken to look at issues that could mitigate the occurrence of those in the future. And the Honorable Minister of Water Resources will give a detailed account on not just of what has happened in Borno State, but also about the after effect of the flooding itself. In other words, what happens the day after the water recedes finally. Let me invite at this point the Honorable Minister of Water Resources to give further insight into what FEC deliberated as regards the issue of the flooding in Borno State.
The Honorable Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation Engineer Professor Joseph Utsef briefed Council on the flood situation in Nigeria, with particular emphasis on the Maiduguri flooding. And we can recall that on the 10th of September 2024, there was a heavy downpour which resulted to flooding in the country. and in particular, the Maiduguri flooding. And this was as a result of an overflow of one of the components of Alao Dam, which is situated in the Alao community of Borno State. This particular dam was constructed between the year 1984 and completed in the year 1986, and has been undergoing a series of operation and maintenance by the Child Basin Development Authority, an agency that is under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation. So in 2022, there was a problem with one of the dikes that forms part of the component of the dam. And the ministry now wrote to the chairman, Senate Committee on Water Resources and House Committee on Water Resources, and that of House Committee on Appropriation for intervention, as it was lacking adequate funding in the year 2022. And he also wrote to the government of Borno State to also intervene in the rehabilitation of this particular dam. And the Borno State government accepted and now also invited the Northeast Development Commission to come in, which they graciously accepted and wrote to the ministry, and the ministry gave them a go-ahead. And that process is ongoing. This dam was actually constructed for the purpose, about 38 years ago, for the purpose of water supply, irrigation, and flood control. So when this happened, the ministry, among other high delegations that went there, I led the delegation of the Ministry of Water Resources to that place, and we examined what is on ground. And we are now going to reassess the true integrity of that dam to come up with a detailed design so that an overhaul of that particular dam will be reconstructed for its expansion. Also, the managers of Lado Dam in Cameroon, which we normally discuss with them on a yearly basis, made us to understand that the Lado Dam has to be built, and we agree that 100 cubic meters of water can be released from 17th of September to 24th of September, spanning from 100 to 1,000 cubic meters over the 7 days. And when that agreement was reached, we sent that warning to those living along the Benue Valley that this is a situation and they should get prepared. And those that are living along the flood plain areas should relocate. We are now working, making recommendations. And one of the recommendations is the construction of that Hausa Dam along that trough, which will not only comb the menace of flooding, but will also be useful in water supply, irrigation, and hydropower generation. Today, the Federal Executive Council have constituted a committee to look into not only the Alao Dam, but other dams in the country, to reassess them and come up with recommendations that will solve the challenge of flooding, and also putting into use the available dams we have. Today again, Nigeria has joined the rest of the world in celebrating the World Rivers Day, which is very critical, which is normally carried out on the 22nd of September every year. But the 22nd of September for this year falls on the Sunday, which is a work-free day. And because of that, we've moved it to today. And I'm happy to inform that today Nigeria is celebrating, has joined the rest of the world in celebrating the World Rivers Day. The activity is ongoing. There was a press briefing in the morning, and we have gone to Jabi Lake for the tree planting and symbolic cleaning of the river. The theme of today, this year's celebration, is the incredible natural, cultural, and recreational values of rivers and streams in our communities, which we are celebrating on a sub-theme, protect our rivers from pollution. So those are the activities that we are briefed today.
On behalf of the government and people of Borno State, on the response by His Excellency the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, in swift response to cater and mitigate the sufferings of the people in the aftermath of the catastrophic disaster, which is the flooding by the Alo Dam in Maiduguri, Borno State. Likewise, on the day it happened, the Vice President also went there and commiserate with the government and people of Borno State. In addition, after Mr. President's visit, he also approved the immediate release from the National Strategic Reserve of 100 trailers of rice, 50 trailers of maize, 30 trailers of sorghum, and 20 trailers of millet. And that's in the process of delivery. Half of it has already been delivered, and the delivery is ongoing. At FEC also, I highlighted the dangers ahead in what is associated with usually flood water, that is contamination and diseases, and also the structures, especially building structures, housing structures that will have been inundated with flood water. Usually, it weakens the structural foundation of such buildings, and the humanitarian response that is ongoing, and also the committee that was set up by the Borno State government to look into these items. So we commiserate and also condole Mr. President and whole Nigeria on what has happened.
To give you additional briefing on that, in addition to some of the memos that he has also presented today, I will bring in the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy.
Gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I, along with my fellow members of the Federal Executive Council, were indeed very much in agreement with Mr. President's decision to start today's Federal Executive Council with a report and allocation of time to discuss the unfortunate, the sad, and very devastating disaster, flood disaster in Borno State. We all agreed and felt that it was extremely appropriate that, led by Mr. President, we focused on, first of all, the sad loss of life and expressing condolences to the relatives who had lost loved ones, as well, of course, as looking to encourage, support, and definitely empathize with those whose lives had been very severely disrupted and negatively affected by the disaster which although they had survived, they were facing a very difficult aftermath. Having said that, and we have heard from my colleagues, Honourable Minister for Water Resources, Honourable Minister for Agriculture, their own perspective and details of what happened. But at the end of that important discussion, which we started our meeting with, Mr. President did direct that a disaster relief fund be set up. Now, we know we do have the NEMA relief fund. We even have, that was from about 1998, 1999, that was set up. And we do have the, we do also have the flood relief fund that was set up around 2012. But I think Mr. President's view is that we need, in this era of climate change, of climate events, as well as the fact that from time to time there will be, no matter the prevention measures, there will be disasters that will occur, that we need to build greater resilience in the form of a substantial disaster relief fund, separate from the agencies that actually intervene physically. This will focus on the financing and bringing together the funding from across the spectrum, the federal, the subnational levels, even the local levels, and clearly the private sector, and even international philanthropic organizations, a best-in-class fund that would be led by top corporate governance, including leadership by the private sector at an appropriate level, probably heading it, in order to build for Nigeria a resilient response that is of adequate size, scale, and quality, and able to respond in such occurrences as we have had in Borno and elsewhere before. And we, no matter how we prepare and pray against it, we also know that this will happen from time to time, and so we need to be ready. In addition, importantly, the Economic Stabilization Bill proposal, draft bill, was passed by the Federal Executive Council, and that essentially basically puts in place specific measures, specific draft laws and specific policies in the fiscal area, in the tax area, in order to improve the overall economic environment. It's essentially based on the output of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee that was set up by Mr. President in August 2023, and which under the chairmanship of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, and in order to give, in order to implement those different recommendations, what has been required is changes to various laws, and as a package, the Federal Executive Council did pass for onward transmission to the National Assembly economic stabilization bills. It contains, for example, items that change the Foreign Exchange Act, give greater liquidity, and encourage the use of electronic rather than cash means, for example. And of course, giving the central bank even greater ability to bring in and attract funds such as the money from the international money transfer organizations and others that want to transact foreign exchange business and, in fact, remit funds to Nigeria. Likewise, the Companies Income Tax Act, there's also a proposal to amend that, basically to allow Nigerians with the skills, the expertise, and the relevant relationships to be able to stay in Nigeria and provide services to foreign companies abroad without those companies having to come and register in Nigeria, thereby opening up a whole vista of employment opportunities, income opportunities, and entrepreneurship opportunities. So those are the types of measures that are contained in what is an omnibus bill. There are changes to the Fiscal Responsibility Act as well that affect, in particular, the government-owned enterprises and how they are to share their surpluses and how they are to put in place reserve funds for building surpluses from their revenues. As I say, it's very detailed, and of course, it will be available to the public. And that was one of the important things that was done at the Federal Executive Council today.
The situation in Borno and other parts of the country where these disasters, especially flooding, has occurred, 3 ministers have had to extensively brief you about that. Now, other things were also discussed, one of which is the revamping of the infrastructure of especially the Federal Capital Territory and its environment. And to discuss that, I will bring in the Honorable Minister of the FCT, Barrister Nyesom Wike, to give you details of what he has presented to Council and the approvals he has gotten to improve, like I said, on the infrastructure of the FCT.
Of course, we all know the effort of the present government to improve the infrastructure of FCT and its environs, particularly the satellite towns. Prior to this period, we know the level of decay of the infrastructure in FCT, and in most cases, government had never thought it wise to take development to the satellite towns. One of the things we did, or the Federal Council did today, is to approve ratify the approval of the termination of the contract for the development of Maitama 2 district. Before now, you know that this is an area that are allocated to various citizens. What we have there is not less than 1,700 allottees before this government came in, and contracts were awarded the sum of 184 billion for provision of infrastructure in this Maitama 2. It has been a problem. Of course, the thinking of Mr. President is, look, if we're able to develop this, it will reduce the housing deficit. So many people will go and develop their properties. And unfortunately, after the award of this contract, the contractor was not found to be on site. Of course, you may not also blame him. From what we saw, he was never mobilized. And the reality of the time that it has taken over 1 year. So we sought for the termination of the contract and start a due process of procurement, and then provide enough fund for this infrastructure development to take place in Maitama. I can assure you, now that we have gotten the ratification of the Mr. President termination, we'll move quickly to start the procurement process to make sure that we develop a Maitama 2. Again, it has been Mr. President's renewable agenda that we should also take development to the satellite towns. As I speak to you today, I know before December, we'll be able to commission not less than 75 kilometers of roads. But Mr. President had also said we must continue to give hope and give infrastructure to satellite towns. The areas covered or approved by the Federal Council is construction of Pai Gomani Road in Kwale Area Council, Aguma Palace Stroke Radio Nigeria Stroke New Market Road in Gwagwalada Area Council, and then Oshafa War College Road, Oshafa Village Roads, and all other connected roads in Oshafa in Buari Area Council. So these are the 3 area councils that council approved that we have to make sure that infrastructure is given. There's also an approval for award of contracts for the development of arterial road N5 of Bafemi Awolowo Way. That is from Life Camp Junction to Ring Road 3. So many people who have been saying that, look, we must have to do something to see that that place is decongested so that we'll have things free for ourselves. So, and this contract is to be carried out by Julius Berger, and it will be completed in 16, 17 months time. Again, the importance, Mr. President, attaches to the judiciary. Mr. Frame finds it very difficult how judges and justices will be living in rented houses and hotel apartments. That is not safe for judiciary. That is not convenient for them to do their work. And so Mr. President directed that the FCT, through the FCDA, should immediately construct 40 number judges and justices quarters at Katakbe district. Now what it means is that out of these 40, FCT High Court, which is like the FCT Court, will have 20. The Federal High Court will have 10, and the Court of Appeal will have 10. And this will be completed in 15 months' time. Of course, we believe that there's no need to give a long contract that will give you from time to time variation upon variation. There's no variation, and Council has said that clearly. Again, Council approved the construction of access road from Arterial Road N11 in Mabuchi to Judges' Quarters. In essence, all the roads within the Judges' Quarters will have to be constructed. Mr. President has also given the Federal Council, sorry, when I say Mr. President, Federal Council also approved the construction of access road from Ring Road 1 by N16, Shehu Shagari Way, also to Judges' Quarters. And this, of course, will be not more than 15 months. Mr. President, also, of course, you know, sometimes this year, we flagged off the construction of the Abuja division of the Court of Appeal. If you are there, you will know that there was no access road at all. And so today, Council approved a full development of what they call Collector Road, CN8, and other connecting roads to have access to the Court of Appeal Abuja division. So these are the approvals made by the Federal Council today.
In today's Federal Executive Council, a number of road projects were approved by the Council. One is the rehabilitation, a new contract for the rehabilitation of Maraban, Kankara, Fontua Road in Katsina State. Second one is the award of contract for the construction of 258 kilometer 3-lane carriageway, a component of the 1000 Sokoto Badagry Superhighway, Section 2, Phase 2A. And it's to be done, it's in KB section, and it's to be done with a continuous reinforced concrete pavement. and it excludes all bridges and flyovers, and is awarded today. Second one is the contract for reconstruction and dualization of Afikpo, Uturu, Okigwe in Ebonyi, Abia, and Imo States, Section 2. Approved. The third one is the Bodo Boni route under Julius Berger. The Federal Executive Council approved additional 80 billion to complete that project, bringing the total cost to 280 billion under Julius Berger, and that is Bodo Boni in River State. The next is the Third Mainland Bridge. The Third Mainland Bridge was executed under emergency work. When you have emergency work, you have to get going and then measure the work and then appear to send all your measurements and quotations to the BPP. And that's what we did. At the time that we got into office, the Third Mainland Bridge was a nightmare. The deck, there was, pavement differentials of over 1 foot. And that was causing a lot of accident and hold up and constituting dead load to the Third Mainland Bridge. So that has been done. And it's also extended to Falomo and Queen's Drive. It also came with, solar light. Yesterday, I inspected the observation room. We have observation room we built by the sea line. And the essence of it is that all through the length and breadth of the route, the security agencies will be within that observation room, and they will be able to check everything happening within the length and breadth of this Third Mainland Bridge. And we give response time to respond to any eventuality for 10 minutes. So the contract covers about 4 security vans and the 1 speedboat. They will all be within the observation room. The job of the CCTV is about 95% done. And that is going to be very helpful, and that is what we are also proposing for all our federal highway that we are tolling. We are not only putting solar light, we are also putting CCTV camera, have relief stations where observation will happen, and so that will eliminate all the road blockage. So that was approved today. We have 14, road projects and bridges that we were approved, for construction. They were badly affected by floods, and some of the bridges were being threatened. We have Ado Ekiti, Afe Babalola in Ekiti State. We have JB Lamba Road in Adamawa State. We have Koko Besa Zaria Kata Road in Kebbi State. We have construction of Ngotug to Demishi Road. We have the Amasiro Bosi Uburishago to Enugu State. We have Awo Iwe Ata, 20.3 kilometer, phase 1. We have a Bom Road in Cross River State. We have the Ilesha Eti Oni, East and Oke Igbo, Ondo State, phase 1. We have construction of Ilesha Eti Oni, Okigbo, Ondo State, section 2. We have that's section 1. We have Eti Oni Road on Atakumosa, East Osun State. We have Lafia Shandam Road in Plateau State. We have a section of Abakaliki Afikpo Road, section 1. We have dualization of Bodo Ken Kiti Koroma Road in River State. And we have the dualization of Afikpo Uturu Okigwe Road in Ebonyi, Abia, and the Imo State. These 14 roads were awarded, and you have a contract for the repair and rehabilitation of Gamboro Bridge along Gamboro, Ngala, Kala, Bade Road in Borno State. We have approval of 2 number contracts of routes. One is the Cross River to Ferekwe route, and the other one is Kaba in Kogi State down to Ado Ekiti route in favor of CCACC. We have the Abuja-Kano route, 82-kilometer dualized. It's a project of Julobeja that is been ongoing, and we inherited from past administration. About 62 kilometers was completed for a total sum of 393 billion and paid. And so when we came on board, Beja sought to review the entire project. Don't forget that the initial cost of the project was 155 billion, and the past administration reviewed it to 797 billion. And when we came on board, Beja insisted that the reviewed contract sum should be 1.5 trillion. We didn't have that money, and the coordinating minister and myself, we went through the road by ourselves and had strategic meeting with Beja. Eventually, I sought the approval of Mr. President to dismember the project into 3 so that 2 sections could be done on tax credit and Beja could do 1. So the first section is 38 kilometers. It has not been brought to council by 2. It's to be done with concrete. The second section is Beja, and that is 82 kilometers by 2, and it's to be done with asphalt that they have been working with. And the third section is Bua, which is just 17 kilometers to be done on concrete. And so today, FEC approved that of Julobeja because the other 2 were not before FEC. And so for a total contract sum of 740 billion. If you remove approximately 400 billion paid by the last administration, then what is left is about 400 billion. That is, the 340 billion. That is what the contract sum for the 164 kilometer will be. And that's what FEC approved today. And then FEC also approved rehabilitation of Abuja. Yeah, that is the one that I've just read. Then FEC noted the meeting that the National Council of Engineering had in Ebonyi State, and the terms of reference of the council was to formulate policy and implementation, institutional strengthening, adoption of continuously reinforced concrete pavement for our roads, integrated financing and alternative funding for roads and bridges. So a number of approvals were made by the council based on the edict establishing them, and FEC were invited to note such approval as made by council. And lastly, or second to the last, is a noting of the construction of Bama to Banki road in Borno State. It's just that the elements of the road changed, but the contract sum did not change. So we needed to inform FEC. Then lastly is the Lekki Deep Sea Port. I hope I've mentioned the Lekki Deep Sea Port, the service lane, were approved today by FEC for construction because the congestion is already building up there. The carriageway being done is there's a traffic jam, and there is a need to have the service lane. So FEC approved that. And lastly, we discovered from my inspection yesterday that we have over 3,000 of fuel trucks that were queuing for the Dangote fuel lifting. And they were all parked on the newly constructed road. Technically, and by design, the roads were never built for static loads. And so it has a lot of effect. And so we're going to have the same thing we have in Apapa that damaged the entire road until it was constructed on concrete. So what FEC approved today is that the land that we have, federal government land, we should put it for concession so that concessionaire could bid, and whoever that wins it will be able to build a park. And so it's a park that will be towed so that all those trucks could safely park, over there. And the pavement of such a park is quite different from the pavement of the road. So this is what FEC approved today.
Earlier, we were just talking about the flood in Maiduguri, and that was why I didn't bring it up. But during FEC approval, Federal Executive Council approved the purchase of 2,000 John Deere tractors and 100 combined harvesters. The tractors are going to come with implements, that is the 5-ton trailer, plows, and also harrows. So the amount is $70 million for all the equipments, and delivery period is 6 months. So council approved purchase, and this is the third in a series of mechanization program by the Renewed Hope mechanization program of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The first one was the Greener Hope mechanization program, which was approved some time ago by council. And the second one was the Belarus 2,000 tractors, similar to what we have in the more robust, but then similar to what we have in the John Deere tractors. So John Deere, of course, is an equipment manufacturer, agricultural equipment manufacturer out of the United States of America.
This were approved in relation to education in today's FEC. The first of which was approval for some infrastructure for some institutions in the sector. University of Ibadan, which was established since 1948, is having its first Senate building, and which is meant to accommodate, tens of offices and principal management of the university. And then you may recall of recent, NECO had released the results of examinations it ran of recent for millions of Nigerians. And the council today approved the process and the cost associated with that. And then lastly, through a memo which came through my colleague information, something important which touches on education also came up. He will elaborate on it, but I'll just mention the part which connects with what we are doing. Members of the press will appreciate that there's a general concern about behavior and conduct of our young ones in the country and our social values. And probably as a fact also that civic education is a compulsory subject in the secondary schools. But with all that, we are still having some deterioration and serious concern about our national values. And so that's going to strengthen what we are doing. And we are rolling out actually a new curriculum for all schools in Nigeria from this October, for primary schools and for all secondary schools, which is supposed to incorporate knowledge, skills, and values, especially with a special focus on skills so that our students, when they graduate, they will have skills that they can connect with the economy. So what that means is that it's going to strengthen the national values that our students will be graduating with. So these are what Council approved today. Thank you.
Changes in our policies to strengthen our national values system. The chief of which is that the National Citizens Values Brigade has been approved to be established in all primary and secondary schools, as you have heard from the Honorable Minister of Education. Of course, this will raise model citizens among Nigerians. We have noted, Council has noted the gradual erosion of our values, especially among the younger ones, and this is giving rise to the kind of misbehavior and attitude that we see that is out of tune with our tradition and our norms and our upbringing. So Council has noted that there is the need for strengthening and going back to these core values that Nigeria is known for over time, for which we know that there has been some kind of decline. So today, Council said, first, the National Citizens Values Brigade will be established, not just in primary schools, in secondary schools, across this country. Now, this will also help to create the ambassadors of Nigerian values that this country seeks to have. Again, there was an approval of the inclusion of the National Values Charter and the national symbols to be made mandatory, not just in our curriculum, in the teaching of civic education, but also among appointees of government. For example, at every retreat, at the inception of every administration, members, for example, of the Federal Executive Council will have some form of workshop or training on what our national values are, so that this can be further be inculcated. And not only that, also the standardization of our national symbols, the national flag, the national anthem, the Naira notes, the Constitution, and all those things that make what we call our national symbols. We must standardize them. Council has approved that the National Orientation Agency will take charge of that. The way we see our flags being hosted in some indiscriminate manner will be standardized. There is a particular standard of the way we want our national flags to look like at all times. The ones on the table, the ones you mount on vehicles, the ones that also stand, but with particular dimensions and all that. Details of that will be provided later. But it is important to mention that in addition to the infrastructural revamp that this administration is paying a lot of attention to, there's also the need for us to have a value reorientation amongst all Nigerians. And this, of course, the administration is paying a lot of attention to, and emphasis is going to be put there. The objective is that the decline that we have seen in our value system, we hope that we will reclaim those, and this, again, will help in moving this direction on the part of sustainable progress and development that all of us collectively so desire. So the Council has said that a lot of these activities that have been put in place, details of which we will provide to you, members of the press. It's difficult to now go into those details now. Now, having said that, there is also, for emphasis, that the Council has directed that a technical committee for the review of all dams in Nigeria be set up. That has been approved by Council. It's a technical committee to review all dams in Nigeria as a result of what we have seen in Borno, and also the kind of activities we have seen around our various dams scattered around the country. The committee has now been set up so that we focus on that and mitigate the possibility of the kind of disasters that we have seen in recent time. And the committee will have, of course, the Honorable Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation as chair, Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister of Works, Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Budget and Economic Planning, of the National Office of the National Security Advisor, and of course the Ministry of Information, to provide you with the necessary information that you require from time to time. And just an addition to what the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Planning has also put out, the Disaster Relief Fund that Council has approved to take off today will have as its chair Mr. Tony Elumelu. Of course, it will have other members from the private sector as well. The Minister of FCT will be there, the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, the Honorable Minister of Budget, and other relevant ministries. We'll give you details of that also as we move on. Of course, the Ministry of Information will also be there to continue to give you the necessary information that you require. Now, in view of the fact that today, as you'll agree with me, we've had a very bumper edition, a lot of things to report on. I will crave your indulgence as I open the floor for questions to please. I know hands are already flying up.
In addition to the importance of having dams along the Benue Valley in containing the challenge of flooding in Nigeria, when we came on board under the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, I called for a briefing because I was made to understand that the Dasi Hausa issue is still on ground. So what we did was we now reviewed the construction of the Dasi Hausa. I was made to understand that there was a study and design of the Dasi Hausa that was ongoing. I invited the consultant of the Dasi Hausa Dam, and he now submitted the draft of the study and design. We from the Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation looked at the draft study and design, and we saw some issues there that needs to be detailed, that needs to be reviewed. So that has been sent to the consultant, which is working on it right now. And with the constitution of this technical committee for the review of dams in Nigeria, I think this is going to hasten the process and finally give us a direction in putting an end to this study and design process and coming up with the full design that will be ready for the implementation and for the construction of the Dasi Hausa Dam. The Dasi Hausa Dam is actually going to be a very big dam because it's actually planned for both hydropower generation, water supply, irrigation, and flood control, which is going to curtail that water that is coming from the Lado Dam. So all the processes are on, and with this constitution, we believe that it's going to solve that and solve it permanently.
Before I go into the actual questions on mainly monetary policy and the economic stabilization bill that is going to the National Assembly, just to say on the disaster relief fund, it is something that has announced there's a concept note ready. But as for the actual, of course, the Honorable Minister for Information and National Orientation has rightly mentioned some of the initial team members' pension down. But I think in terms of what I had said is that we're looking to ensure that for quality assurance and for wider scope and global reach and even acceptance, and in order to stick to best practices, it is contemplated that it will be private sector led by someone for the private sector. But I think since one naturally would have to consult here and there, I don't think any particular name can be safely quoted because, of course, when you talk about the private sector, you can list a whole, so many top quality private operators. But I think at this early stage, it's safe to say that, we all know the likes of who when we talk about the elite who could lead such a fund. So that's just an addendum to what the Honorable Minister of Information had said. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag at this stage. Back to the all-important questions on it's a fiscal policy and tax reform bill, and it's called an economic stabilization bill because it contains elements of both fiscal and monetary policy. So there's no fear about central bank and Ministry of Finance and the government as a whole being in alliance in the fight against inflation, for instance, which is everybody's fight, and the desire to have an orderly, liquid foreign exchange market, and the desire to ensure that Nigerians that want to bring funds into the formal system, who want to repatriate or remit funds, can do so easily, efficiently, and transparently. So I don't think the bill in any way contravenes, and in fact, it supports those very, very laudable goals. In terms of when, it's immediate. Once the Federal Executive Council has given such a directive as this, it goes back, I imagine, to the Ministry of Justice, and then it is transmitted in the usual manner to the National Assembly. And of course, we all know that there will be a public hearing. It is a normal process, and at which time all the details will be divulged and they will be available to the public at large to not only be informed about, but to also give their own input, as is under a democratic process, which is how we make laws, led by the National Assembly. So I think in terms of rate cuts, tomorrow, I believe it is, the Monetary Policy Committee of Central Bank will meet, and clearly we need to wait for the outcome of their deliberations to see how they respond to the worldwide reaction to a substantial cut in interest rates by the Federal Reserve, which, as it is today, globally, financially, the world is led to a very large extent, and the financial markets are led to a very large extent by the Federal Reserve. Needless to say, as a developing country, a country that needs to garner resources, both our own domestic resources and those of anybody else willing to support, willing to buy into our story by investing directly or buying our financial instruments, our debt instruments, lower rates are important. So we can look forward to help with easier financing, cheaper financing. We can look forward to the help that gives in terms of fighting inflation and other economic magnitudes. So that's what we have to say about the Federal Reserve cut. The other responses by way of policy will come one way or the other from the central bank in the near future. Thank you.